Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with a lot of new tryouts and experimenting, I guess. Using all sorts of random new to me things here. So first off, Simon Says Stamps, new blender brushes. If you don't follow me on social media, love. They just came out with like this huge set. There's these large ones and small ones and you can get them individually and they're all pretty colors and blah, blah, blah. I got a set. I have a second set coming because yeah, one for oxides, one for dye inks, yada yada. I'll do more as time comes on. So anyway, I wanted to use this Silhouette Sentiment set by Kathy Zielski. I had this random idea for the background. So I was going to do the background and then stamp on top, etc. And then I was like, no, I think I'll heat emboss it first because then it'll resist all the ink blending and everything I'm going to do. So I have some distressed watercolor paper and I've offset it in my MISTI because I'm going to kind of stamp the image off the edge of the paper. And I used my anti-static powder tool and I inked up the stamp with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. Stamped it a couple times to get a good impression of everything, and my messy top bun, of course, getting in camera as always. And then I'm going to cover this with clear embossing powder. So once I've got that coated, brush off any random little strays that I can see. The rest I'm not too concerned about. I'm going to melt this with my heat tool. Off camera, I'm going to clean the stamp because I want to stamp this twice. I'm not going to use this entire panel, but I want more of the silhouette images. I really like this set because it's smaller. I've done like how many videos now of the big Simon Says Stamp Wildflowers one, that silhouette image with those huge stamps. Love. And I like how this one's little. This is much more manageable if people don't want to get into like the really big stamps. So I figured out what I want to do and decided to just kind of layer these rather, so that some of the images overlap. So same thing. Put the paper back into my MISTI, going to ink up the stamp, use my anti-static powder tool, inked up the stamp with the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and then I will clear heat emboss this as well. So then I've got my image all the way across, and because it's heat embossed, it will resist all of the ink blending that I do on top of it. Now, if I wanted to do just regular distress inks, because I'm going to use oxides, but if I was going to use regular distress inks or any like dye water-based ink, you could technically just stamp in black and ink blend over it. It's not going to do anything because the inks are transparent. But because I'm using oxides and they have the pigment in them, that's why I did the heat embossing, because that will allow them to resist those inks. So the other new product, new to me, these are ink pad holders from the ink stand. Brianne actually sent me several. Love her. She's amazing. She makes really pretty cards and she invented this awesome little product. There's several different sizes. I will link to them because Simon Says Stamp carries them now, which I'm very excited about. And I'm going to order more. This is the square one. So they hold regular distress ink pads and regular oxide ink pads, like you can see. So it holds the ink pad and the lid, which I like because I'm really bad about like the lids are just all over the place and I get ink everywhere. These ones have magnet strips on the sides so they can, kind of hold each other in place, but the magnets aren't super strong so you're not having to wrench with it. And they have little feet on them that keep them from sliding around. I like these. Like, I was really excited when she reached out to me. I was like, yay, I've been trying to get them, but Simon keeps selling out like all the time. So there's this one. There's one that holds the mini distress inks, like, or cubes in general, and there's one that holds like regular ink pads. Anyway, I'll link to them. You can check them out. Highly recommend. She's amazing. These are awesome. I'm having fun with them. And like, I'm going to get more. I have these 3, but I need to get I think I'm going to get like 2 more because I usually do like 4 to 5 colors depending. So anyway, I put my little ink pads in there and yeah, it helps. So I was using the blending brushes. Love them. This was my first time using them. They blend like a dream. The bristles are amazing. I did like the quickest, easiest blend in the world. My color combo was Prize Ribbon, the blue, Wilted Violet, love, purple, picked raspberry, and then I did a Bannon Coral at the top. Love. And I'm like kind of holding just on top of the like solid flower because I don't want to get fingerprints on my background. And I'm also working on my Waffle Flower Water Media Mat. I've shown this in a million videos. Love it. Love it. Just all must-haves, really. So I did this super quick, super simple blend. And always, you could just leave it here, you know. But again, like I said, I was experimenting and I just had this rough idea in my head and I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I did my quick and very simple blend. And then I just used one of my little flour sack cloths. I'll link to this as well. This is another must-have. These are cheap. These are great. I use these I used to lay these out when I would do splattering before I had a little splat box. They're amazing. But I just use it to rub over the images and pick up all that excess ink. So this is where an experiment came in. I had this idea in my head and I wanted to, you know, add this sun rays stencil, and I wanted the pattern, but I didn't want to ink blend. And I decided to do water lifting with it. So rather than just lay the stencil and spray with water, I thought, I was like, I'll just spray the back of the stencil with pixie spray. I have this splat box. People always ask when I use it. They're like, ooh, you got a new one. No, this one's just for adhesive. I have a splat box for splatter, and I have a splat box for just for adhesive, because all the adhesive build up and it resists everything, and one for each. You could just use a regular box, whatever. With pixie spray, always make sure you're in a well ventilated area. I have a window in my office. I get it open, all the things. So the pixie spray just makes it tacky and not super sticky. So it just kind of holds it in place. And then I laid my stencil down over my background, slightly sprayed it with water. It does ooze under the stencil because I didn't press it down hard with the pixie spray, but that's okay. And then I used a paper towel, aka a Viva paper towel. I had a wonderful person send me a couple rolls of this because Viva paper towels are really hard to come by. They're hard, especially in Canada. I could not, unless I wanted to pay literally a king's ransom for a case of them. It was insane. So she sent me a couple rolls, and yeah, you could use any paper towel. The thing with Viva is that it doesn't really have any pattern imprinted in it. But with this, I don't know if it would honestly matter. It might, but that's why I used the piece of Viva. And she had marked the rolls with Viva. That's why you saw it on the screen. Anyway, whatever floats your boat. Because, yeah, I just wanted that cool pattern, and that's what I got. So I dried the background, and then I'm adding splatter, of course. So all I did was I picked raspberry onto my medium mat, added water, splattered it, and then I mushed the prize ribbon and splattered that. And I can't not have shimmer splatter. So of course I'm adding perfect pearl powder to my mat, added some water, and then used up like every little bit of it. Heavily splattered. You'll see at the end, like when this turns in the light, there is something about perfect pearl splatter that just, it is, a container of perfect pearl powder is a must-have in your craft stash. Because there's you can mix it with water to make a shimmer spray. I use it with splatter. I mix it with the white gouache to make a shimmery white splatter. Like, it is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, did my splatter, and then I trimmed down my panel a bit because that stencil I'd used was like a slimline size, so like 3.5 inches wide. And then, so I trimmed down the sides, but I didn't trim as much off the top or bottom. I really didn't want to. I was like, I love this color combo, and if I trim too much, I'm going to lose like the abandoned coral, etc. So I modified what I ended up doing to adhere it to my card. And I set that aside. And then I'm just using a sentiment from that same Silhouette Sentiment set. And I'm going to stamp this onto some black cardstock with Clair embossing ink. And I'm going to heat emboss this with some detail white embossing powder. And then once I have this heat embossed, there is a little coordinating wafer die set for this stamp set that die cuts all of the sentiments as well as the little butterflies in the set. And what I love about that is when I die cut sentiments like this with coordinating wafer dies is to die cut it multiple times from the same cardstock or scrap cardstock, whatever, and then I can stack them. So then I've got, a substantial little bit of dimension without having to use like foam tape or anything like that. And I don't know what it is. I way prefer the look of that. I did that on my Halloween card, like at the beginning of the series with the pink cardstock, like the word, and I stacked it with other layers of pink, and it just, I don't know, there's something about it. I love the look of it. So have all my little die cuts. Everything's ready to go, but I'll get to those in a minute. And then I have my little background panel with all the flowers, and I have my card base. Card base is going to be a top folding A2 size card. And I want to stamp that silhouette image, of course, on the inside of the card. This was also not necessarily an experiment, but it was just a new way to do this. I have shown this in a bunch of videos using Oxide inks when stamping on the inside of cards or whatever. And I usually use the mini ink blending foams. Again, tons of videos showing it. This time I'm just going to use these blender brushes. I knew it would work, but I was like, I wonder how much different it is. Honestly, the only difference is you get a slightly lighter amount of ink. It looks like a lot like on the stamp itself because it's like solid with the blending brushes. But I'm picking up the ink with the blending brush and applying it directly to the stamp. And I've done this again with the mini blending foams, etc. Like I said, it's the same. You just get a lighter impression because you're using blending brushes, so they're not laying down as much ink as the foams would. However, you could stamp twice, like do this, stamp it, because I'm using a MISTI, open it, add more ink with the brushes, that'd be great. But I actually like that it's a lighter impression, and you can see I did my little happy dance, which I included in the video. So I was like, that's actually perfect. I don't want it really super dark and intense because it's the inside of the card. So this was, I love it. I love these brushes. I love Oxide inks, of course. I can't say how this would work with like regular distress inks. It'd get a little iffy there. Again, Oxides, this is the whole point. Like because of the pigment quantities in them and just the formula, you know, it sits on stamps longer. It sits on top of cardstock longer. It just works. So I was really happy with how that turned out. Plus just the color blend on the stamps. There's something about silhouette images, you know, when you add color like this, especially florals. Love. So I did the same thing on the outside that I did on the front panel. Like I'd moved the cardstock and then inked it up a second time. So I have that whole row and they're in the same color blend as the front. And then I added a sentiment and then some of the butterfly images from this set because there's these cute little butterflies and all that fun stuff. So I added those to the inside of the card. And then I'll just pick it all up with the lid of my MISTI. And then all of that I'm going to ink up with that VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And yes, this really fills up the inside of the card, but I like that. And I just write over it. Like, and depending on what I do, because some people are like, you know, what are you going to do on the inside? I'm like, I will literally write over those flowers with a pen. I don't care. But if if I have more to say or whatever, I can start writing on the top of the inside of the card. I can write on the back. I can add a second piece of paper, you know, whatever works. I'm not too concerned about it. So inside's done. And for the outside, you can see I'm going to line up the panel along the bottom, which for me isn't the norm. Like usually I like things, you know, centered and there's a border and blah, blah, blah. But again, I didn't want to cut off any more of the main panel because that color blend and everything was looking so fabulous. So to stack my sentiments, it's craft tacky glue. Another new to me thing this is a second bottle. I have my main bottle of craft tacky that I use in 99.9% of my videos. I have a second bottle that I added a fine tip to. It's a metal tip. I'll link to it. It'll be right beside the glue. You just screw it on. That's it. It will screw on to the craft tacky bottle. I just thought it'd be fun to have an option where I have like a super fine detail tip. None of that was necessary for this card, but like I said, this was like all like, ooh, this is new. I just got this. These showed up. I'm going to use them all at once and see what happens. So I stacked all my sentiments together. Like here, I don't need to use a fine tip for this, you know, but I already had the bottle sitting here and I was like, whatever. So I to each their own. So anywho, I adhered my panel to the card base, just right along the bottom edge. Just another reason why I love my water media mat, because it has that raised edge all around. So it helps to line things up. And then I'm going to add my sentiment. So just add a little squiggle of glue to that, get that adhered to the card base. And as always, because this is what I do anytime I do any sort of card with these sorts of images, anything, I pulled out the Flickering Butterflies Wafer dies, because just meant to be. It's another must-have set in my opinion. And Lawn Fawn Pearlescent Vellum, because when in Rome. So pulled those out, die cut a bunch of little iridescent butterflies with that vellum. And I'm going to adhere these. So I just kind of sprinkled them throughout, and like I always do, any extras I just keep in the packaging for the next time I pull this out, aka the next time I do anything floral that needs iridescent butterflies. So I'm going to adhere these with little dabs of that craft tacky glue. And like I say, every time I use this die set with these, even though it's vellum and you will see the adhesive through it, it's such a tiny amount. I only apply a little dot, and then I adhere just the very center of the butterfly to that, I don't worry about it. If these were larger, well, if they were larger, they would have probably little like bodies that I would adhere on top, or you could add a little like gem or pearl or something, you know. But with the, I don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. So with all the splatter and everything going on, you're not going to be like, ooh, there's glue dots showing through the butterflies. Yeah. Anyway, last little bit, I wanted to stamp my envelope. I almost never do this. It was an afterthought this time because normally I forget. I lined up my envelope and then I put a piece of cardstock in. It just kind of helps sometimes when you're stamping an envelope to give you a smooth surface because like the folds and the extra layers on the back. But lined up my envelope and I'm just going to stamp the silhouette image onto it with that same VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. So get that stamped. And then once that's done, this little ensemble will be complete. This is a dull pink envelope from Simon as well, and it just goes with the picked raspberry, and just life is great. This was a fun card to make, and I got to experiment with all sorts of new things, and they just made me happy. So there you can see like the shimmer of the butterflies and the shimmer of that perfect pearl powder splatter. Love it. This, again, like I said, this was loads of fun to make, and the colors, I really love this color combo. I was just grabbing colors I liked, and I was like, ooh, this is perfect. So, as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll link to everything I used, talked about, etc. Check out the description box below, as well as my blog. My blog, it'll be picture links, which makes everything just easier to find. So that'll be below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!